A quiet American city, a beloved Thai restaurant owner, and a murder marked with a chilling golden symbol. When Detective Rachel Myers starts digging, she finds whispers of a curse that has crossed oceans, one that hunts anyone who hears its name. But the deeper she goes, the closer the danger gets, and soon, she's not sure if she's chasing the killer or the killer is chasing her. If you want to know what happens when the haunting music begins, watch till the very end. And if you love gripping stories like this, hit subscribe now and drop your thoughts in the comments. Your idea might inspire our next mystery. Rain hammered the cracked sidewalks of Portland that night, turning the quiet streets into rivers of silver under the street lamps. No one saw the figure step out of the alley. No one except the man who would never speak again. The city had been restless for weeks, its people whispering about a crime, so strange it didn't fit in headlines. It wasn't just a murder. It was the way it happened, the way it felt like a message. Detective Rachel Myers knew the city's darkness well. But this case was different. The victim was a Thai-American restaurant owner, beloved for the spicy green curry that drew crowds from all over the state. His place, Somchai's Kitchen, had been a meeting point for cops, lawyers, even the mayor. Now it was sealed with yellow tape, the smell of basil and lemongrass still clinging to the air outside. Rachel stood in the rain, watching drops slide off the brim of her hat, staring at the shattered glass door. Inside, the blood had pooled near the counter, not random, not chaotic, almost deliberate. And in the middle of that pool, drawn in the victim's own blood, was a circle with 3 jagged lines cutting through it. The coroner whispered it might be a cultural mark, but Rachel had worked enough cases to know. When something was more than a symbol, this was a signature. She spoke to the neighbors. One saw a shadow moving across the street just after closing time. Another swore they heard faint music, the twang of a Thai khim, the sound oddly out of place in the damp Oregon night. As the hours passed, Rachel's gut told her the killer wasn't just sending a message to the victim. It was to the whole city. The press swarmed. Talk radio buzzed with fear. Was it a hate crime? Was it gang-related? Or was it something older, something that had crossed oceans and generations to find its place here? Then the first letter arrived at the station. No envelope, just folded paper, smelling faintly of incense. On it, in looping script, were 5 words: "Stop looking or more will fall." Rachel stared at the note, her fingers tightening around the paper until the edges crumpled. The handwriting was careful, elegant, not the scrawl of someone rushing to hide their identity. This was deliberate. It was the kind of penmanship that took time, the kind that wanted to be recognized. The faint scent of incense clung stubbornly to her hands, a smell that carried her back to the temple on the east side of town. She'd been there once for a community event. Golden Buddha statues, saffron-robed monks, and the slow, calming rhythm of chanting. But now the scent felt corrupted, as if something sacred had been twisted. She drove to Somchai's Kitchen after midnight, parking far enough away so her headlights wouldn't draw attention. The rain had stopped, leaving the streets slick and glistening like black glass. Through the boarded-up door, she could still see the faint outline of where the blood had been scrubbed from the floor. A noise cut through the silence. Soft, deliberate footsteps on wet pavement. Rachel's hand went to her gun, her breath slowing as she listened. The steps stopped just out of sight. Then from the shadows, a man's voice, low, calm, accented, slid into the night air. "You're looking in the wrong place, detective." Before she could speak, he stepped forward just enough of the dim light to catch his eyes, dark, unreadable, and fixed on her as if he knew exactly who she was. Somewhere in the distance, the faint sound of the khim began to play again, its strings trembling like a warning carried on the wind. Rachel didn't lower her weapon, but the man didn't flinch. He stood there in a black raincoat, water dripping from the brim of his hat, a thin smile pulling at the corner of his mouth. "Who are you?" she asked, her voice cutting through the cold night air. "I'm the one trying to keep you alive," he said, his tone almost casual, as if they were discussing the weather instead of a murder. Her finger tightened slightly on the trigger. "Then start talking." He glanced toward the boarded-up restaurant. then back at her. "This isn't about one man," he said softly. "It's about a debt, one that's been waiting to be collected for nearly 30 years. Rachel felt a chill crawl up her spine. "What kind of debt?" He didn't answer right away. Instead, he reached into his coat slowly, pulling out a small folded square of silk. When he opened it, Rachel saw the same symbol from the crime scene, the circle with 3 jagged lines. But this time it was embroidered in gold thread. "This mark," he said, "is older than the city, older than you can imagine, and if you keep chasing it." He stopped mid-sentence, his gaze flicking over her shoulder. Rachel turned. The street was empty, but the music, the eerie, trembling notes of the khim, was now louder, as if it were coming from somewhere impossibly close. Rachel's pulse quickened, her eyes scanning the darkened street. No cars, no people, just the glistening pavement and the sound of that haunting music, threading its way through the air like smoke. She turned back toward the man, but he was gone. The spot where he'd been standing was empty, save for the small silk square. Now, lying damp on the ground, Rachel crouched, picking it up between her fingers. The gold thread shimmered faintly under the streetlight, and for a moment she swore she could feel heat radiating from it. A shiver ran through her, not from the cold, from the sense that she had just stepped into something she couldn't walk away from. She tucked the cloth into her coat pocket and drove straight to the precinct. The night shift was quiet, the hum of the vending machine, the only sound in the hall. In the evidence room, she laid the silk under a magnifying lamp. That's when she noticed it. Tiny, almost invisible characters stitched between the jagged lines. Thai script. She didn't speak the language, but she recognized one thing. The same script had been etched into a wooden amulet she'd seen years ago during a trafficking case. The amulet had been confiscated from a suspect who vanished before trial, a man whose file was still marked missing. And just as she leaned closer to study the stitching, a sharp metallic click echoed from somewhere behind her in the dark room. Rachel froze, her hand hovering over the lamp switch. The sound had come from the far side of the evidence shelves, a slow, deliberate click, like someone easing a safety off a gun. Her other hand went to her holster, fingers wrapping around the grip. She didn't move, didn't breathe, just listened. Another sound followed, soft leather brushing against metal, footsteps measured and unhurried, weaving through the narrow aisles between racks of sealed boxes. Rachel took one step back toward the wall, her eyes adjusting to the shadows. The faint glow from the lamp cast long, twisted shapes on the floor, making it impossible to tell if the movement ahead was real or just a trick of the light. "Who's there?" she called, her voice low but sharp. No answer. The footsteps stopped. She glanced toward the door, calculating the distance. Too far. If she moved for it now, she'd have to turn her back. Then, out of the darkness, a man's voice, familiar, steady, spoke from somewhere she couldn't pinpoint. "You should have burned that cloth the moment you touched it." Her grip tightened on the gun. The lamp flickered once, and when the light steadied again, a tall figure stood just at the edge of the glow, face hidden under the brim of a hat, one gloved hand resting on the metal shelves. And dangling from that hand was a wooden amulet, etched with the exact same symbol in gold. Rachel kept her gun trained on him, but her mind was already racing. The amulet swung gently in the dim light, catching faint glimmers of gold like a heartbeat pulsing in the dark. "Put it down," she ordered. The man tilted his head slightly, as if weighing whether to obey. Instead, he stepped forward, just enough for her to see the deep lines in his face, a face she recognized from the old trafficking file. "You're supposed to be dead," she said, her voice tightening. He gave a small, humorless smile. "People like me don't die so easily." Her grip didn't loosen. "What do you want?" His gaze dropped to her coat pocket. "The cloth," he said simply. "Give it to me, and maybe the city will sleep again." Rachel's jaw clenched. "You killed Somchai?" The man's eyes darkened. "I warned him, just like I'm warning you now." Some debts cannot be forgiven. Some names should never be spoken. Before she could press him, the khim music swelled again. But this time it wasn't distant. It was inside the evidence room. So close it felt like the strings were being plucked right beside her ear. The man didn't move. Neither did she. Then the sound stopped, and from the far end of the aisle, a second figure stepped into view, barefoot, their face half-painted in gold, holding a blade curved like a crescent moon. Rachel shifted her stance, keeping both figures in her line of sight, her heartbeat pounding in her ears. The barefoot figure's blade glinted under the flickering lamp, its edge catching light in sharp, sudden flashes. The gold paint on her face formed strange, jagged patterns, almost the same shape as the symbol on the cloth and the amulet. Neither spoke. They just stood there, one blocking the exit, the other watching her with the stillness of a predator. Rachel tightened her grip on the gun. "This is your only warning," she said. "Drop the weapon and step back." The gold-faced figure smiled faintly, then took a slow, deliberate step forward, their bare feet whispering against the cold tile floor. The man with the amulet raised his free hand. "You can't shoot them, detective," he said quietly. "Not because you won't, but because it won't matter." Rachel kept her aim steady. What the hell does that mean? Instead of answering, the gold-faced figure began to hum, low, rhythmic, the sound weaving into the air like the beginning of a chant. With each note, Rachel felt a faint vibration in her chest, as if the sound was inside her, pushing against her heartbeat. The man with the amulet leaned closer, his voice barely above a whisper. "It's already begun, and the moment you hear the name, you're part of it." Before Rachel could react, the gold-faced figure spoke a single word in Thai, soft and sharp, a word she didn't understand, but one that made the air in the room seem suddenly heavier. The air pressed in around her, thick and suffocating, as if the walls of the evidence room had shifted closer. Rachel's breath quickened. Her fingers stayed on the trigger, but her arms felt heavier, like an unseen weight was pulling them down. The gold-faced figure's eyes locked onto hers, unblinking, almost hypnotic, and their lips curled into something between a smirk and a snarl. The man with the amulet took a step nearer. "You've heard it now," he said. "There's no walking away." Rachel fought to keep her focus. "Tell me what it means." His jaw tightened. "It's a binding, an oath, or a curse, depending on where you stand. Somchai broke it, and you—" The gold-faced figure cut him off with a sharp, high note, plucked from nowhere, a sound that made Rachel's vision blur for a heartbeat. When it cleared, the overhead lamp was swaying, casting the room into a slow, dizzying dance of light and shadow. From somewhere deep in the shelves, something fell, a small wooden box, its lid snapping open as it hit the floor. Inside, nestled in black cloth, was another amulet, only this one was cracked straight through the middle, its gold inlay faded and darkened, as though whatever it once held had been violently released. Rachel's eyes darted to the broken amulet, its jagged fracture looking almost fresh, as if it had split the moment it hit the floor. The gold-faced figure stopped humming, their head tilted slightly toward the box, like an animal catching the scent of prey. The man with the unbroken amulet knelt beside it, his gloved fingers brushing the cracked surface with unexpected care. "This," he said, "should never have been opened." Rachel didn't lower her weapon. What was inside it? He looked up at her, his expression unreadable. "Not what? Who?" Before she could press him, the gold-faced figure crouched low, their bare hand hovering over the broken amulet. The moment their skin touched it, a sharp metallic ping echoed through the room, followed by the faintest whisper, a voice Rachel couldn't place, speaking in Thai so softly. It almost sounded like breath against her ear. Her stomach tightened. She didn't understand the words, but she felt them. Something in them was wrong, like hearing a lullaby twisted into a threat. The gold-faced figure slowly rose to their feet, still holding the broken amulet. Their painted lips curved into a smile that didn't belong to them, their eyes darker than before. The man with the unbroken amulet straightened, his voice urgent now. "Detective, if they walk out of this room with that, you'll be chasing more than a killer." Rachel's finger tightened on the trigger, but a knot of hesitation twisted in her chest. The gold-faced figure's smile deepened, as if they could sense it. They stepped toward the door, bare feet silent on the tile, the broken amulet cradled in their palm like something precious. The man with the unbroken amulet moved to block them, but the figure shifted with unnatural speed, sliding past them in a blur. For a split second, Rachel caught the glint of the curved blade again, and the faintest smear of blood along its edge. Her instinct screamed to fire, but in that same moment, the khim music swelled to an almost deafening pitch, filling her head until her thoughts were scattered fragments. She blinked, and they were gone. The man with the unbroken amulet cursed under his breath, then turned sharply toward her. "You've just let it loose." Rachel steadied herself, forcing her breathing to slow. "What exactly did I let loose?" He stepped closer, lowering his voice until it was almost a growl. "A name, a spirit bound in gold, and now it has a body to wear." He pressed the unbroken amulet into her hand. "You'll need this before the week is over. And if you want to survive." He trailed off, his eyes flicking toward the evidence room door, where a faint trail of wet, bare footprints was slowly drying on the floor. Rachel followed the trail with her eyes, each footprint a pale ghost against the tile. They stopped just before the hallway, as if the figure had vanished into thin air. The man's voice broke the silence. "You think you're hunting them, but from now on they're hunting you." Rachel clenched the amulet in her fist, its edges pressing into her palm. She wanted answers, fast, but the man was already walking toward the shadows between the shelves. "Wait," she called. "Who are you?" He paused, his back still to her. "The only one left who knows how to end this." Then he was gone, slipping into the dark without a sound. Rachel stood alone, the room still humming faintly from the music that had faded moments ago. Her phone buzzed in her pocket. A text from dispatch. Another body. Same symbol. Corner of 5th and Alder. Asterisk, asterisk. Her grip on the amulet tightened until her knuckles turned white. She left the evidence room, her boots echoing down the hall. And when she pushed open the station's front doors, the rain had started again. Slow, steady drops tapping against the hood of her coat. But under that soft rain, she could swear she heard it again. The delicate, deliberate plucking of a khim, somewhere just ahead, leading her straight toward 5th and Alder. The closer Rachel got to 5th and Alder, the louder the khim's notes became, weaving through the hiss of rain like a thread pulling her forward. The street was cordoned off with flashing patrol lights. Uniformed officers moved in tight, quick motions, their voices low, as if speaking too loudly might disturb whatever lingered here. Rachel ducked under the tape. The smell hit her first, a sharp mix of wet pavement, iron, and something faintly sweet. Incense. The victim lay in the middle of the crosswalk, eyes open to the gray night sky. A thin trail of water running from the curb past their body. The same circle in 3 lines, symbol was drawn in deep crimson across the chest, but here was different, lined with flecks of gold dust that caught the glow of the street lamps. One of the younger officers approached. "Detective, no one saw anyone leave, but witnesses say the music started before the body hit the ground." Rachel scanned the rooftops, the alleys, her mind pulling back to the barefoot figure in the evidence room. The gold, the blade, the name she couldn't understand. She knelt beside the body, running her flashlight along the gold-flecked lines. Some of the dust had pooled in the cracks of the asphalt, like it was deliberately placed there to be carried away by the rain. From the corner of her vision, she caught movement, a shadow slipping between 2 buildings, and with it, a single clear note from the khim, hanging in the air like a dare. Rachel rose slowly, her hand resting on her holster, her eyes locked on the narrow space between the buildings. The shadow moved again, smooth, purposeful, vanishing deeper into the alley. She followed, her boots splashing through shallow puddles, the rain soft against the brim of her hat. The khim's melody floated ahead, fading in and out as if the air itself was carrying it away from her. The alley opened into a small courtyard behind an abandoned laundromat. Faded prayer flags fluttered above, their colors washed pale by years of weather. In the center stood a shrine, half collapsed, with offerings long rotted away. On the cracked stone base, the symbol was carved deep, the same circle in 3 jagged lines. But here it was older, its edges worn smooth, as if countless hands had traced it over time. Rachel stepped closer, the amulet in her pocket, growing warm against her thigh. The warmth turned into a faint throb, matching the rhythm of her heartbeat. From the shadows beside the shrine, the gold-faced figure emerged, no weapon in hand this time, just the broken amulet, its jagged edges catching the dim light. They didn't speak. They only stood there, watching her, rain sliding down their painted face. Rachel's grip tightened around the unbroken amulet. She could feel something, a pull, like the air between them was a taut thread, waiting for someone to cut it. Then, almost too softly to hear, the figure whispered in Thai, the same word as before. The sound made the air shift, and the rain around them seemed to fall slower, as if time itself was holding its breath. Rachel knew, without knowing how, that whatever happened next would decide whether the city's nightmare ended here or truly began. Rachel didn't move. Every muscle in her body was locked between the urge to act and the fear of what acting might unleash. The gold-faced figure stepped closer, each barefoot stride soundless against the wet stone. They stopped just within arm's reach, the broken amulet resting lightly in their palm, as if offering it to her. But Rachel could see it, the faint shimmer of gold dust rising from the crack, curling in the air like smoke. Her instincts told her it wasn't just dust, it was something alive. Her other hand slid into her pocket, fingers wrapping around the unbroken amulet. It pulsed once, then again, stronger, as though it recognized its twin. The figure's painted eyes narrowed. The khim's melody returned, but now it was slower, heavier, like a heartbeat winding down. Rachel's breath came out in a slow, controlled stream. "This ends here," she said. The figure tilted their head, and for the first time, Rachel saw something human in their expression, a flicker of pain, quickly buried under the mask of gold. She brought the unbroken amulet up between them. The pulsing grew faster, the air trembling around its edges. Somewhere deep in the shrine stone, a low hum began to rise, as if the very ground was answering the call. The gold-faced figure's grip on the broken amulet tightened. Their voice, barely above a whisper, slipped through the rain. "If you do this, you take its place." The hum deepened, the gold dust thickening between them, and in that instant, Rachel realized the choice was no longer about saving the city. It was about deciding who would bear the curse next. Rachel's pulse thundered in her ears, the 2 amulets now burning in the damp night air. The gold-faced figure's eyes locked on hers, steady, almost pleading, though their painted mask betrayed nothing. The hum from the shrine swelled, vibrating through the stone under her boots, up her spine, into her teeth. She understood, in a way that wasn't logic, but certainty, the curse would not break on its own. It needed a vessel, and once bound, it could not be passed willingly. Rachel glanced toward the alley's opening, where the faint lights of the city flickered through the rain. Somewhere out there, more lives would fall if she hesitated. She drew in one slow breath, closed her eyes, and brought the unbroken amulet to meet the broken one. The moment they touched, a blinding flash of gold tore through the courtyard, sending the rain scattering in every direction. The hum rose into a single sharp note, then vanished. When Rachel opened her eyes, the gold-faced figure was gone. Only the shrine remained, its carved symbol now whole again, the cracks smoothed over as if they had never been. In her palm, the amulet was cold. Its gold inlay faded to dull brass. The pulsing had stopped. She stood there for a long time, listening to the quiet, until the sound of the rain became just rain again. As she walked back toward the street, The city lights seemed a little softer, the air a little lighter, but in the deepest corner of her mind, she could still hear it. The delicate pluck of a khim string, faint and patient, waiting,